Welcome to the Shifting Realities podcast. I'm your host, Julie Allison, and with me is my co host and friend, Robert Perry. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about not looking backwards. What do we mean about that? Have you ever said to yourself or said to other people, oh, I just wish it was like before COVID, or I just wish it was like 10 years ago when I was doing this with children or doing that and enjoying myself, and it's not like that now. Well, the problem with that is if we tend to look back, we're only looking back at a particular version of us. What we're actually needing to do more and more is obviously look forward. What's the opposite of looking back? It's looking forward. Do you want to say anything about that first, Rob? About the
Yeah, I mean,
looking
I
forward?
agree with you
Yeah.
completely. When you're young, everything's about your future,
Mm,
and you plan the future, or you don't plan the future, but you're excited about what's coming in your life and growing up and experiencing. Then you get to a point where it's sort of in the present, and then you come out of your present reality, and it's like, oh, I wish things were like they used to be. And it can be, I wish they hadn't built that factory there because I loved that view.
mm,
Or it can be, I wish I was still close to my brother and sister the way I used to be. Anything that takes you back,
mm,
that nostalgia thing, the
yeah.
thinking that things were better when they were. And Britain is particularly good at nostalgia, that we
Mm.
seem to think that everything was better before the war.
Yes.
Life was more
It's another
wonderful,
one.
green pastures. Life before the war was horrible and hard and poor
Mm,
and
mm,
grim. So it's looking forward for me is the only possible way to
mm.
grow as a human being. Understanding your past is a different thing altogether.
Yes.
So knowing what is behind, knowing what you've lived through and knowing what you are to live towards is for me one of the keys of life.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, from looking back, all you need to know with that is that's your experiences and you're learning from your experience to create what I would class as a new version of yourself. So literally you can look back all the experiences, say it was a job that you loved 20 years ago and they do and look at how technology, we would say all the technology has taken jobs off us, but it hasn't. It's also, if you look into it, it's also created new jobs. So it might be something using that all you need to do is looking back at what you did is still use those skills to move forward and get a job. It's still something that you love. I mean, I don't know about Rob, but myself, a lot of things I used to work in data, in the database industry, if you want to call it that, working on databases, and now the database is the DNA. So I'm still researching DNA at the moment and looking into
Yeah.
people's DNA because that's projecting out into the field. So I'm now looking far beyond what I would ever imagine when I was just looking into the DNA in a computer. So, that's lovely I think that's amazing. I've also got recently, this topic has come up for us because it comes into our field. We notice it. So recently, for instance, I've had a couple of clients wanting to go back to the time before they were poorly. So, for instance, one client said to me, "Can you ask the guides how I can get back to the time, so how I can live my life now, but back to the time before I was ill or before I had my mini heart attack?" So I'm saying that's not what you want to do. Why would you want to go back to that version of you that actually created the heart attack in the first place? So what we forget, the bits that we forget when we have this memory of going back, is the bits that happened in between to create the problem in the first place. So we don't want to go back to where the problem lies. We want to just literally look at the cause and move away, move on from that cause, heal that cause, and then move away, move forward into a lovely new version of you, new up-leveled version of you, nice and healed. That's what you want to be looking at, the positive side of healing. If we look at this in a bigger way, oh, there we go, Rob. Our throat chakra
There's
is
your
gone
throat chakra
again.
going.
We know
There
we're
we
going to
go.
tell. Yeah, what I'm going to do? No, we're going to tell you all this.
Yeah.
So what I was going to explain was, in our world, there's a few of us now have had information about the old ancient scripts. We keep getting information about all the different scripts, like emerald tablets, Dead Sea Scrolls, all the the Bible before it was distorted. We are looking backwards, look to understand what's going on. Why do we need to look at these scripts? But this is about, and I'm going to keep saying these words, looking back to see how we can get back to the original blueprints of us, the original versions of us. But when we say looking back, we actually mean taking what we knew then, researching what we knew hundreds of thousands of years ago. We might not have even been human then, or we would have been superhuman, but we're bringing it forward. So what the guides keep telling us now is we need to bring this and code all these ancient scripts into the new version of ourselves, the new superhumans that I'm going to say, will be. The fact that it's already happened and we're getting there through experience is a different matter, maybe for another time to explain that. But we're looking for, again, on this greater scale of humanity, we're looking back to actually bring everything just as you would when you're looking at a fond memory of what we were, but we're going to be even better this time if we allow it in our timeline. So we're going to look forward and see how we can start decoding all the distortions in the current grids, and how we can which will enable us to get back to that healed version of us in every way. That new, how people are talking about the new earth, the actual new earth frequencies. Don't make the mistake of this and the new age. That's a different thing going around. Not quite sure what that is. Yeah, a few distortions there, but we're talking about the new earth. So because we're talking about creating new versions of ourselves, new frequencies, new vibrations. Have you anything to add to that, Rob?
Quite a lot, but I probably shouldn't go quite as
I
far
know.
into that as I think. Yeah, I have. I don't want to say I have a problem with ancient texts, but I guess I do,
Mm,
if
mm,
I'm quite frank about it. Um, all the organized religions in the world are built on ancient texts, from whichever standpoint you look at. The Bible is however many thousands years old, as an example. Esoteric thinking beyond organized religion tends to be based on ancient texts, some of which don't exist or aren't accessible or are theoretically hidden or have been found and hidden again. Um, I don't quite understand why we feel the need, other than as a point of understanding. As I said earlier, understanding the past is absolutely fine. Living in it is not fine.
no.
So
No.
these things written however many thousands of years ago and by whoever wrote them, or perhaps didn't write them, are instructional to a point. It's kind of an academic point.
Mm,
Like, this is where we were at the point this text was written. This is interesting because this is where these texts would like us to go. But however many thousands of years later, perhaps we have already gone. Perhaps our DNA has been encoded and upgraded enough to include a lot of this information. And as I said to you just before we started, Julie, I would like to stop reading old texts and start writing new ones.
yes.
And all I'm doing really is saying I don't want to be wedded to those old texts. I want to acknowledge them, but I want to write my own going forward. And that comes from no point of arrogance, just a point of the future is what matters. The future me is what matters. The future you is what matters. Not the you and I of 5 minutes ago or 20 years
Mm,
ago
mm,
or 4,000 years ago in a different life. It's forward for me. And that includes raising vibration, raising frequency. And as the earth becomes new, I become new. And that for me is the same symbol as the resurrection and any other number of events in
mm,
organized religion. You care to point to that. It's about rebirthing yourself through knowledge.
yes.
And that knowledge, of course, comes through your DNA.
Yes, absolutely. definitely all through DNA. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll stop
The,
there
the,
because otherwise we'll be here forever.
yeah. Well, I think what we take from that as well, one of the other things we've been talking about is it's about then letting go. It's about not
Yeah,
dwelling on the past, not holding on. Something that's been coming into my field, being aware of it is even myself. I've still been holding on to my past as well. So my past as a human being, as well as the past of humanity. So this is, I think, what really is happening, what the guide was showing us in terms of keep going back to the scripts is just take what you need, but it's not the scripts on the outside. It's the scripts that we can see from before, but really take them into the new, make them fresh. So as Rob said,
yeah,
let's write. I'm going to say a new script because it could be like, a script for our
yeah,
own reality
yeah.
for our new this is why we call our podcast Shifting Reality. We're looking at creating a new script for ourselves rather than dwelling on the past, rather than dwelling on the human 3D aspect of even where we dwell on the past of what we feel about money, what we feel about spirituality, what we feel about the family, and going, and continuing to go back. It's about, and the way to go forward is, first of all, I'm going to say this again, go within. Go
Hmm.
within to get that understanding. So that's about, other people might say be present. And then you can start to understand using our DNA, we can just recode everything into the beautiful new earth that we want, and we can just move forward. So this is what myself and Rob and a few of us have had the information on. We're just really creating, new scripts, a new script for ourselves. Stop dwelling. The whole point of this podcast today is just to stop dwelling on the past.
Hmm.
It takes up a lot of energy. When I hear somebody talking about the past, because all they're doing is bringing up those snippets of memories of the way they wish it was, and they actually forget the way it was. Just as Rob said about, pre-war, they forget that there must have been some problems for somebody to be ill in the first place. So rather than be in a place where they were before they were ill, in a place where they were before they maybe were in poverty, say, there's got to have been something that's happened. But all you do is find out from going within how to move forward. That's the question. The question that you ask yourself is, how do I move forward? The question that you ask yourself is, how do I move into a new version of me that's healed in whatever way you want to heal, whether that's your own body health, your relationships, your relationship with money and work. To be really honest, the more I look at it, it's all related anyway. You get a new job and you end up being, far healthier and far more vibrant than you were in a job that you hate, and where it ends up making you ill and stressed, etc. So that's the question that personally I want to leave everybody with. How do I move forward?
Yeah,
What do I do for my future? What's my new version of myself? How do I write my new script?
exactly. And it's so easy in so many ways and so hard in so many ways,
It is.
because as much as we want to move forward, we are still 3D people, and
Mm,
we're surrounded by other
mm,
3D people who you can't always talk about this to. And I'm
yes,
sure for you,
yes.
and certainly for me, Julie, when we came up with this podcast, it was to speak our truth and put it out there. And
It
whoever listens to it
definitely was.
listens to it,
Yeah.
because we're at a point now where we feel obliged to do that and required to do that,
Mm,
led to do
mm.
that perhaps. But
Mission.
I know plenty of people who don't want to hear this in
Yes.
my own personal
Yeah.
circle, and they might listen to me politely. More often than not, though, I just simply won't go there because it's not, the time I have with them is quite precious and not for this. So I
Yeah.
leave them in their own reality and then deal with my own reality later. you know
Yes. Yeah.
but there are more and more of us who do want to go
There
forward.
are.
There are more and more people
Mm,
who are, I find anyway, going, oh, that's interesting, actually I never thought of that,
yeah.
and then going away and reading something or finding a video on it, or
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
coming back and
Being
saying, what
interested.
do you think about this?
Hmm.
So there is this massive tipping point in humanity, and some of
Yeah.
us are tipping and others are climbing up the hill ready to tip over the other side. So it's enormous.
Yeah.
You have to,
Yeah.
though, first look after, it's like, look after your own health first, look after your own finances first,
Mm.
then you can look after others.
Yeah.
So we've all worked ourselves to a point where we feel now we can lead others into their own
Yes.
reality and their own future vibration.
Yeah. I
So
feel
yeah,
like we'll
onward and
definitely,
upwards, literally.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. We'll definitely keep on talking about this
yeah,
until more people hear. All we need is more people to, work it sort of work around and start listening. And that is, in my world, that's happening. Nobody has to
yeah,
be, what we call awake or anything like that. That there's just, to me, there's just various levels of being aware, really.
yeah.
And literally, as much as we'll talk, I hear more and more people like Rob is now. As much as there are people not listening, there's more and more people listening, and as we get into that frequency of people opening up to new possibilities, to maybe the lives we've been living are not quite up to par, and maybe there's just something else that we need to be doing, and that's what makes people aware and look to alternate, what we might call alternative views. We don't want it to be called alternative view in the
No, we
future.
have to come up with a new
To
phrase, don't we? A new
come
term.
away with that.
Yes.
But we will continue,
Yeah.
we'll continue, sharing what we get. I mean, a lot of this is I've got from the guides, myself, and from other people talking to me as well. And we'll just carry on doing that and
Indeed.
talking. Mm,
Indeed. We know that people are listening to this podcast,
mm,
that it's growing, and people are listening, and they're not people we
mm,
know or have given this
mm.
podcast to. They're people who are just finding us.
Yeah,
So, and it's not just us. There are many, many people doing this work or similar work,
there are. Mm,
all getting people
mm.
listening to them and all getting people coming on board.
Yes.
So it's an exciting time.
It is. It's a very exciting time. Yeah, it's the truth is coming through, and even going to go as far as, just because somebody's in this what we class as the spiritual world, please be discerning. Not
Mm.
everything is as it seems, and yeah, some people are, they're keeping us stuck, and we've probably got to share things like that as well.
Yeah,
That there are, some instant, when you look outside and you're not doing the work to go within, you might be getting stuck yourself.
absolutely.
Okay.
But always rely on your instincts. Feel
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
if it feels right, good. If it doesn't feel right, back
Mm.
away.
Always check.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
All right. I
Good.
think that's us
Yeah,
done for the
well,
week,
that's us
Julie.
done
Yeah.
to share what we, the theme coming up for this week that we've been getting. Lovely. So, hope you enjoyed this podcast. It's a wrap from me and Rob for today, and we'll be with you next week with another podcast as usual. Please let us know if you have any questions or queries. All the details to get hold of us are below. Bye for now.
Bye bye.